This is the matter of ZA, the elder, ZA, the younger, SA, the elder, SA, the younger, and EA. Case numbers 245087NA through 245079NA. Present in the virtual courtroom. We have Deborah Coletti on behalf of the mother. The mother was present, but she had no audio. Hopefully she'll be able to rejoin us with audio. Michael Adams, who is father's attorney. Kristen Newhouse, who's the children's attorney, and various agency workers, as well as the foster parent, Ms. Kendrick. Ms. Newhouse.
Thank you. I believe my witness is going to be Carolyn Carnes.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand? Would you state your name and spell it for the record?
Caroline Cairns, CarolineCairns.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Cairns, you are employed by Wellspring Lutheran Services, and you were previously the case manager regarding the Ackland family. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the new worker is Sydney Lee?
That is correct.
Who's present today?
Yes, correct.
Okay. But you're up to date on what's been going on and can get us up to present, even though Ms. Lee did the addendum?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I have a number of exhibits today. The most recent exhibit would be, I believe that they're in one packet, but I would list what's in there. We have a court addendum, report date April 10, 2025, and that was by Ms. Lee, and that has a honorable judge report attached to it as well, I believe. We have a case service plan, report date 4/15/2025. That was authored by Ms. Cairns. I've got a pack of foster care supported visitation and in-home parent education reports. I've got multiple ones. I've got a termination report that's 7 pages. I've got a Centria autism report for elder ZA, and I also have one for younger ZA. And let's see the dates on that. The evaluation for older ZA was done 3/5/2025. The report for the younger ZA was done 2/26 and 2/27 of this year. So those are 2 different reports. I have forensic lab, a stack of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those for Mariah Ackland, along with a client history, forensic fluids. I have a grouping of medical reports for Mrs. Ackland. There's an after visit summary packet from Trinity Health. There's some additional, it says Jordan at the top regarding, it's got some lab tests and things. And then there is a Trinity Health Emergency Center report of 3/8/25, and that's on Mrs. Ackland too. I have an earnings statement, 2 pages for Mr. Dwayne Ackland attached to that as well. I think that covers everything in that packet.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, they're all admitted as exhibit 1.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with the children. elder ZA, he's 7. How's he doing?
He's doing very well. He continues to remain up to date on all of his medical and dental appointments. There are no concerns at this time. He continues to attend school and is doing well in school. During this reporting period, he was accepted into a Coit Creative Arts program through GRPS that he will participate in during the next academic year. During this reporting period, he participated in a autism assessment. It was deemed that he did not have autism. However, he did present with light to moderate impairment in daily functioning. So the agency is currently seeking ABA services to see if they would be able to work with ZA, or if he could participate else, or if he's not able to participate in ABA services, the agency will seek services to support him through Wedgwood. But he continues to be doing very well bonded to his siblings, seems very comfortable in the foster home. There are no concerns.
Okay, younger ZA, she's 6. How's she doing?
She is also doing very well. She's also up to date on all of her medical and dental appointments. She continues to do well in school. She was also accepted into the Coit Creative Arts program through GRPS. During this reporting period, she was the student of the month, so she is doing very well in school. She did also participate in a autism assessment, and she was diagnosed with autism type 2, so the agency is currently seeking ABA services for her. During parenting times, she appears well bonded to her siblings. She has had some I wouldn't even say explosive behaviors, but just some, she experiences some conflict with her siblings. She cries here and there during parenting times due to conflict with her siblings. Most recently, she became upset because she didn't want to leave a parenting time, but overall, she's doing very well. The conflict with her siblings isn't anything that the agency is concerned about at this time.
And the record should reflect that Ms. Ackland, mother, just joined us. I know she was having technical problems.
Thank you. Okay, so older SA is 3. How is SA doing?
Continues to remain up to date on all medical and dental appointments. There are no concerns. He is attending a Spanish immersion Head Start program and was also accepted into a Southwest Elementary School Academia Bilingue program through GRPS that he will participate in the next academic year. He was participating in a home-based service through Arbor Circle. However, his therapist is no longer with Arbor Circle, so he's currently participating in counseling through his school, which has been reported to be going well so far. He does tend to be shy and tends to play independently during parenting times. However, this has not been identified as a concern. He is well bonded to his siblings and also appears very comfortable in his placement.
Did I say he was 3? He's 4, right?
I believe he's 5.
5. Okay, let me see here there. All right, my math's bad. SA, younger SA, how's she doing?
She is doing very well, also up to date on all medical and dental appointments. There are no concerns. She also attends a Spanish immersion Head Start program, which is going well. She also was participating in the home-based Arbor Circle. However, this is not continuing due to her therapist no longer being with Arbor Circle. So she is on the wait list for counseling services through her school. Again, they're doing very well.
Okay, and then our youngest, EA.
Yes, he is doing well. He is up to date on all medical and dental appointments. During this reporting period, he had a procedure to remove his tonsils as they were deemed very large, and there was concern that if he was sick, they would block his airways. So his tonsils were removed. Initially following the procedure, he was doing very well. However, a couple days following, there were some complications where he had excessive bleeding. So he was brought to the hospital and a follow-up procedure was necessary. However, he has bounced back. He's doing very well. There's no concern for any follow-up in that regard at this time. He continues to attend school at the Spanish Immersion Head Start program. This is going very well. Similar to his older siblings, he is no longer participating in Arbor Circle as his therapist is no longer there. So he is also on the wait list for counseling through his school.
So overall, all 5 children are doing well?
Very well.
Okay. Oh, was Mrs. Ackland, the mom, involved with the tonsillectomy and all of that? Was she notified of all that?
Yes, she was notified and she was able to be at the hospital for the procedure. She was there, I think, throughout the entirety of the day, and then had a visit at the caregiver's home following to see the kiddos.
Okay. And it's probably quite a feat to organize 5 children's schedules going different directions for our caregiver grandma. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree, but she's doing a phenomenal job.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the father. In that entire packet, there was one thing that showed wages. That's one of the things on his treatment plan. What is he doing or not doing?
Mr. Ackland has continued to maintain pretty inconsistent communication with the agency, where we've been able to meet with him virtually to get some updates from him. Unfortunately, due to him living out of state, the agency is fairly limited in what services we're able to provide to him. We're also not able to provide funding for him. However, we continue to offer support to him. He does have employment. He is employed through a caterer. He did provide me pay stubs. I don't believe we've received any updated pay stubs since he sent them to me about probably a month or 2 ago. Mr. Ackland does not currently have housing. He previously was living with relatives. This is not continuing to occur at this time, so he's couch hopping between his friend's house and potentially a few family members. He continues to be in Kentucky. Mr. Ackland was provided a parenting class through MSU Extension Parenting. Mr. Ackland reported that he believed he was signed up for the program. This has not been confirmed, and we are seeking verification from the service provider to ensure that he is participating. However, Mr. Ackland has maintained consistent enough communication for us to meet virtually with him at least once a month.
That parenting class is obviously virtual.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Does he have parenting time with the children?
Mr. Ackland has been offered parenting times. However, he has not contacted the relative caregiver at the designated time in order for a parenting time to occur. So Mr. Ackland has not participated in parenting times throughout this reporting period.
Okay. And he knows how to set that up. Has he ever done, is it Zoom that he's using?
I don't know the method of the virtual parenting time, but I believe he's previously participated in virtual parenting times. And he indicated to me that he maintains communication with the relative caregiver, so that does not seem to be a barrier for him. Mr. Ackland has also been provided with funding to get a flight from Kentucky to Michigan that Mr. Ackland reported he didn't receive. So the new caseworker, Ms. Lee, is working on ensuring that he receives a copy of that paperwork in order for him to be able to book a flight from Kentucky to Michigan.
Okay. What's his intent? To remain in Kentucky, or?
Mr. Ackland had indicated to me that he would like to remain in Kentucky, as that's where his friends and family are located.
Do you know what his intent is regarding his relationship with Mrs. Ackland?
Mr. Ackland reported that he has not had communication with Mrs. Ackland since, I believe, January of this year. He reported to me that they're not in communication. He did indicate that he would like to pursue reunification, but due to his inconsistent communication and involvement with the agency, he has not rectified any of the barriers that initially brought.
Reunification with the children or reunification with their mother?
With the children. I apologize.
Okay, and so do you have any information that either Mr. Ackland or Mrs. Ackland have filed for divorce?
I do not have any documentation or information in that regard.
Are they still legally married as far as you know?
As far as I know, yes, they are still legally married.
Okay. Anything else regarding Mr. Ackland that the court should know today?
No, not at this time.
All right, let's move on to Mrs. Ackland. Before, some of the medical reports have her name as, they have a different name on there. Harrison.
Yes, I believe that's her maiden name.
Okay, so sometimes she goes by that, or?
I think legally she may go by that. I had also noted that on the medical reports. So I guess legally she would go by her maiden name.
Okay, so when we see those reports for her, Mariah Harrison, that's her.
Yes, she provided me that documentation.
Okay, while we're on that, why did we get that documentation? What does that mean?
In March of this year, Mrs. Ackland was in a domestic discord with an unknown male. I don't know who the male was. Mrs. Ackland had informed me that she was strangled by the male and that the male broke her nose. She had contacted police and he was arrested. She had informed me that he was incarcerated and that she had a restraining order against him. However, this year, I believe on April 11th, another domestic discord incident occurred that the current worker, Miss Lee, had indicated to me was involving that same male. And there was another incident of her being strangled and then her finger somehow was cut off. Mrs. Acklin informed the agency that her finger was cut off by closing a window. She did not disclose that it was due to a domestic discord that was determined through a centralized intake report being received by the agency.
So she's missing part of her finger?
Yes, that is correct. She was, I believe, having a surgery earlier this week or maybe late last week, I believe, to address the injury.
Okay, and another one of the concerns were the tests that she was testing positive for substances, and the medical records support that she was put on oxycodone. I see various things for pain for the domestic violence and finger, I would assume.
I do not have documentation from her finger injury. I only had documentation from when she broke her nose, but yes, that does support the positive oxycodone in her drug screens that occurred twice throughout this reporting period.
Because it looks like, at least on the domestic violence, she was prescribed fentanyl. And also the oxycodone, right?
Correct.
And do you know what she's prescribed for this finger currently?
I do not. I have not received any documentation regarding aftercare summary or treatment.
Okay. Let's talk about parenting time for her and the children. What does that look like, and why does it look the way it is?
Parenting times are offered to Mrs. Acklin twice a week. Previously, parenting times were occurring at the relative caregiver's home. However, due to Mrs. Acklin frequently becoming escalated, which required police intervention, the relative caregiver requested that parenting times were moved back to the agency and supervised by the agency caseworker or a case aide. Parenting times, I don't know if I mentioned this, are offered twice a week by the agency. Mrs. Acklin has participated in less than half of those parenting times due to her not confirming timely. Mrs. Acklin is aware of the expectation and her need to confirm. However, she does not confirm timely. Mrs. Acklin has also reported that transportation is a barrier, although she has received transportation assistance through a bus pass. I have transported Mrs. Acklin, and we've also provided Ubers to Mrs. Acklin to ensure she can attend parenting times. Mrs. Acklin also indicated that the weather was inadequate at one of the visits, which was not reflective of the current weather. So that was used as an excuse for the parenting time not occurring. Mrs. Acklin does tend to engage well during parenting times. She appears well bonded to the youth. There was one incident during this reporting period on 3/11 where Mrs. Acklin appeared under the influence of alcohol during her parenting time. Mrs. Acklin was screened on this visit prior to the visit occurring, and it was requested that alcohol be tested in the drug screen, and Mrs. Acklin's drug screen did come back positive for alcohol. So it is suspected that she was under the influence. Mrs. Acklin also became very escalated towards myself as well as the relative caregiver during this visit due to not being able to see her children enough.
And when was that?
On 3/11/25.
Okay. Skipping around here, how many visits has she attended and how many has she not attended? You said
At the time of the addendum being created, there were 20 offered parenting times, of which she had participated in 9. And then since the addendum was created, I believe maybe 8 parenting times would have been offered, and of which she only participated in 2. My math serves me correctly.
So 8 more past the 20?
Since the creation of the addendum, which was on, I believe, 4/10, she would have been offered 7 parenting times, of which she participated in 2.
So
in addition to the 20.
Okay, so out of 27, she's attended 11?
Yes, that is correct. I believe 8, or I believe 10.
Why is it important for her to attend her parenting times and spend time with her 5 children?
In order to continue to establish the bond that she has with her children and the relationship she has with her children. as an agency, we've found that the youth have a difficult time when parenting times are occurring frequently and then not occurring frequently. The children are having a hard time adjusting to that inconsistency, and Mrs. Ackland has not been able to demonstrate her ability to effectively parent the children due to the inconsistent parenting times. Additionally, Mrs. Ackland has reported that she has concerns that her mental health is a barrier in being able to parent all 5 of the children. So not having a space in parenting times at the agency to demonstrate the ability to effectively parent the 5 children is a concern to the agency.
And the kids are disappointed, I would imagine, when their mom doesn't show up.
Yes.
Let's see. The removal date was April 19, 2024. So we are past 1 year, right? But the children are with a relative, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. You know, in my old notes too, there was also a foot injuries. She said she had a foot injury last quarter, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So lots of injuries. Did we ever get medical proof of the foot injury?
We have not received any verification of a foot injury.
Okay. See, how is her housing?
During this reporting period, Mrs. Ackland maintained housing until just last week. The previous month in March, she had received an eviction notice that she was able to pay off. However, last week on Thursday, which was April 24th, she received an eviction notice due to there being fighting in the home, and Mrs. Ackland was not present. So Mrs. Ackland has informed the agency that she's currently living with a friend. We have not been able to verify this housing.
Okay. So no housing. What about, does she have finances or employment?
Mrs. Ackland informed Miss Lee, the new caseworker, that she does have a job at a bowling alley. However, she's not able to work due to her finger. The agency has requested a pay stub, and Mrs. Ackland has not provided a pay stub or any verification of employment at this time.
Does she ever provide for the children at the visit she does attend?
Mrs. Ackland has been observed to have brought food, including like hot dogs and some snacks on a couple occasions, I believe 2 or 3 during this reporting period. But the relative caregiver regularly brings pizzas and like Little Caesars for the youth during parenting time. So the relative caregiver is providing the food to the vast majority of the parenting times.
Okay. Have you asked Mrs. Ackland about what her intent is regarding her relationship with Mr. Ackland?
I have not had that conversation.
But you're not aware that she's filed for divorce or anything, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk about her drug screens. How many has she taken and how many has she missed or refused?
Mrs. Ackland has been offered 8 drug screens. She's offered drug screens at each of her, or at least once a week during her parenting times. If there's concern for significant substance use, she's screened at both parenting times. And then Mrs. Ackland is randomly screened, I believe, twice a week. And she has not participated in any of those throughout this reporting period.
So how many is that? Do you know? Did you add them up?
I did not add them up. If they're twice a week over the last 12 to 16 weeks, given the adjournment, I would suspect over 30.
Okay. Have you had discussions with her about that and how if she misses those drops, they're considered positive?
Yes, Mrs. Ackland is aware of that.
What is the system? She has to call in for her number or color or something?
She has to call in for her color, and if her color is called, she has to appear at the agency for a drug screen.
Does she know where she has to appear?
Yes, Mrs. Ackland attends parenting times at the agency, so she is aware of where parenting times occur, or I'm sorry, where the drug screens would occur.
Excuse me. And has she said why she's not attending those?
I believe due to transportation.
But she's got a bus pass, right?
That is correct.
And if she called and said, hey, I need a way there, you would help her figure that out?
Yes.
Okay. So how much progress has she made on one of our critical barriers here, substance abuse?
Mrs. Ackland has made partial progress in this, as there are some clean drug screens. Of the 8 total drug screens that she had completed during this reporting period, Mrs. Ackland was clean of all substances on 4 of those. However, Mrs. Ackland has tested continued to test positive for THC, and there were also 2 drug screens on 310 and 311 where Mrs. Acklin tested positive for cocaine. When I had a conversation with Mrs. Acklin about her positive drug screens, she denied any and all substance use, including THC. She had indicated that the tests were faulty and that they weren't accurate, and that there should be no substances in her system.
Okay. And let's see, she was re-referred. I referred originally for domestic violence at Arbor Circle. I think they canceled it out because she didn't attend, and you were going to re-refer for domestic violence. Did that happen?
Yes, that occurred, and Mrs. Acklin currently has a recovery coach as well as a therapist through Arbor Circle.
Okay, and they are 2 people maybe that are here with us today?
Yes.
Okay, and have you been in touch with those people, and what is she doing in that program?
Miss Lee has verified that she is participating in Arbor Circle services. An intake session just occurred about 3 weeks ago, so there has been limited information shared with me as Miss Lee's supervisor. I have not received additional information. However, I know Miss Lee has been in communication with Arbor Circle and has verified that Miss Acklin is participating at this time.
Okay, and is that gonna fulfill her counseling requirement there at Arbor Circle?
Yes, it would.
But we're in very early stages, would you agree?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, so it's important that she follow through and be consistent in that program?
Yes, very important.
Okay, and hopefully we can get a written report from them from Arbor Circle for our next review?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. And let's see, what are some of her other barriers? The parenting time, she's got to do better in those areas, right?
Yes, that is correct.
How would you quantify or qualify her, what she's gained in that area in parenting time?
The agency would like to see consistent participation in parenting times and only missing parenting times for an excused reason that includes providing documentation of why Mrs. Acklin is unable to participate in the parenting times. Mrs. Acklin has reported that she's unable to participate due to her nose injury and foot injury, which is not a sufficient reason to cancel a parenting time that's supervised at the agency. So Mrs. Acklin would be expected to provide documentation from a doctor, for example, that says that she's unable to participate in the parenting time.
Okay, and then these children are high energy, high needs. We factor that in the visit. How does she do in the visits with all 5 children?
Mrs. Acklin tends to do fairly well during parenting times. However, she has been observed on a few occasions to become a little overwhelmed in meeting the youth's needs. She just has appeared to be distressed at times during parenting times due to the high needs. However, that's only occurred on probably 2 or 3 occasions from the visits that I've supervised. Mrs. Acklin does tend to do fairly well managing the youth. However, it is a short time. She only spends about an hour with the children at each, or she only spends 1 hour at each visit with the children, and about half of that time is spent them eating and sitting around a table. So it's only about 30 minutes of interactive play during parenting times.
Okay, and so right now, it's not looking like she has a residence to have the kids visit at her residence, right?
That is correct.
So they'll be at the agency?
Yes.
Okay, I know at the last hearing, we talked about appointing a CASA, I think, but has a CASA appeared on this?
I was informed that the court was going to appoint a CASA. The agency has not taken those efforts. However, we can take those efforts if the court is not appointing a CASA.
Okay. Is Mrs. Acklin able to give attention to each of the children? I mean, that's a lot to expect. Could these visits be broken down? Or, I mean, I know the kids need to be together, but has there ever been thought to breaking the kids down, like maybe 2 at one time, 3, combining? I know we don't have a dad visiting, so I don't know what we do, but have you thought of any creative solutions to a mom trying to parent all 5 children in a small room, visitation room at your agency?
That's certainly something we can have a further conversation about due to the children's extracurriculars and activities that they're involved in, as well as the relative caregiver schedule. it's been difficult to find alternative days for visits to occur. However, that's something that we could look at. However, I would, as the caseworker, have concern for splitting up parenting times, as we would pursue reunification with all 5 children. So it would be expected that Mrs. Ackland, at this point in time, after the youth have been removed for over a year, that she be able to parent all 5 children together on a regular basis.
Okay, any other services that you've referred Ms. Ackland to or she's doing that we haven't already talked about?
No, Mrs. Ackland completed a foster care supportive visitation. The successful termination report was included within supporting documentation. The only service Mrs. Ackland is currently participating in is Arbor Circle to address the domestic violence, substance use, as well as mental health. So it would be expected that she maintain participation through Arbor Circle.
So that's a big important key to this, is that she followed through with the Arbor Circle program, because that's 3 of the main barriers here.
Yes, correct.
Learning. I forgot to ask you, have we made any progress on Mr. Ackland signing an affidavit of parentage for, I guess that would be older ZA?
That was something I believe the previous caseworker had provided Mr. Ackland, and that was included within the mail that also included the documentation for funding for a flight that Mr. Ackland reported not receiving. So that will be resent to Mr. Ackland if it has not already been done so.
So currently, oldest ZA has an unknown father. Putative father would be Mr. Ackland, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're at the 1-year mark of removal. We're pretty much at infancy stages regarding counseling, substance abuse, domestic violence. Agree?
I would agree.
But the children are doing well in the relative home?
Yes, they're doing very well.
Okay, are you thinking that you'd like to make the next hearing a permanency planning hearing so we can start looking at permanency for the children?
I believe this was a permanency planning hearing, so the agency was going to recommend a goal change and request that termination hearing be scheduled.
I guess I asked a dumb question. I knew that it was today, but if the court grants another 3 months, because Ms. Ackland has started this program, sorry, I didn't say it very well. You would want the next hearing to also be a permanency planning hearing, is that right?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, if we returned the 5 children to either parent today, would they be at a substantial risk of harm to their life, physical, mental, and emotional well-being?
Yes, they would.
Okay, and progress by either parent at this point has been very minimal. Ms. Ackland has done maybe a little bit more.
Correct, yes.
Do you believe that termination of parental rights is in the children's best interest today?
Yes, I do.
And do you believe that their placement with the relative caregiver allows the children to have regular opportunities to engage in age or developmentally appropriate activities?
Yes, I do.
I don't know how you'd fit in other activities besides school, their medical appointments and things like that. But what do the kids like to do? Do they like to go to the park? Do they play outside? What do they do?
They enjoy playing outside. I observe them playing with toys during parenting times. They get along very well with each other. At the agency, we have a toy kitchen set. So if some of the kiddos enjoy using that and making Mrs. Ackland a little fake meal, but they just get along very well with each other. They're very close-knit group of siblings, very high energy, but makes for a really fun household. So they're all doing very great.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Great, thank you. Ms. Colletti.
Thank you. Ms. Cairns, first starting off with the substance use, she denied using cocaine, correct?
That is correct.
And would you agree that if we did a hair follicle, it would go back 90 days and could show whether that was an error or not?
That's something that the agency could pursue. However, Forensic Fluids does screen each test twice to ensure that a parent isn't testing positive for substances based on a medication that they're taking. So forensic fluids is able to verify that that is cocaine use.
Okay. With regard to her pairing time, now you mentioned her canceled, when she canceled, but hasn't the agency and her the caregiver also canceled?
I do not, to my recollection, nothing comes to mind of the agency or the relative caregiver canceling a parenting time unless it was due to weather, in which the agency would have rescheduled that parenting time.
Okay, when Ms. Ackland said that she was canceled because of the tornado, you said that there wasn't such an event, a weather event occurring. Is that what you said?
The weather, it was in the time of when there was tornado warnings were occurring, but it was a sunny day. There were no concerns for current tornado. The agency would have pursued canceling the visit and would have rescheduled. So at the time of when the visit was occurring, the weather was fine and the tornado warnings were not a reason to cancel the parenting time.
All right, if I can provide you dates and verify that the agency or the caregiver canceled visits, would you give her makeup parenting time for those dates?
Yes, we would.
Okay. With regard to her health issues, a lot of her health issues have been beyond her control, correct?
That is correct.
Like, for instance, she fell and broke her eye socket.
That was caused by a domestic violence incident.
That wasn't caused by slipping on ice in the Dollar General?
Is this the incident that occurred during this reporting period, or was that during a previous reporting period?
Previous reporting period. That she had a broken socket. She's got a broken nose, and she had her finger cut off.
Yes, I was not involved as the worker at the time of that initial incident, so I don't have further information on that. However, the broken nose as well as the finger incident were caused by domestic violence discord.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt. Ms. Ackland, can you please stop moving? It's very distracting. If you could sit down somewhere. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Claudia.
thank you. But with regard to that domestic violence, he broke into her home, correct? She did not invite him. She didn't encourage this relationship.
I do not know. I don't have further information on that. I know Mrs. Ackland pursued a restraining order. However, he was somehow back within the vicinity. I don't have further information on that.
So he fled. I believe he left Michigan and went to a different state to avoid arrest. But she's following through and seeking arrest warrants and restraining orders against this person, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I don't believe that the perpetrator in the domestic violence has fled the state. Mr. Ackland is not being involved in this. I don't have additional information on the perpetrator who is involved in the domestic violence discord.
Okay, so you expect her to get into counseling, and you have referred her back to the Y, correct?
She is participating in counseling services through Arbor Circle.
Okay, are you going to also send her to the YWCA, or is Ms. Harmon able to address the domestic violence issues?
It seems that Ms. Harmon is able to address those issues. Should additional services be necessary, they will be pursued.
Okay. Now, when she was evicted last, I think you said it was just last week that they evicted her because of domestic violence. She was really evicted. I mean, it was beyond her control. She didn't ask to be assaulted, correct?
At the time of last week when she was evicted, Mrs. Ackland was not in the home. There were unknown individuals in the home who caused the fighting incident, which led to the eviction. During the reporting period, Mrs. Ackland had indicated that all household members had moved out of the home. So somehow household members were, whether it's the previous worker or previous household members or new individuals, somehow gained access into the home, and Mrs. Ackland was not there.
Okay. What did you offer her to assist her with find housing resources when she was evicted?
We will offer her Section 8 and see if we can pursue Section 8 housing for her. And we will pursue other options at this time. I just learned of this information yesterday. So the agency will continue to pursue housing resources for Mrs. Ackland.
You're aware, though, that housing is very difficult to find in Grand Rapids, correct?
Yes, I am.
And if she can't find housing and she reduces all other barriers, then you wouldn't hold that against her, correct?
Yes, however, Mrs. Ackland would need to have safe and appropriate housing for the 5 children in order to pursue reunification.
Okay, and you haven't had a chance to check out where she's currently living with a friend?
I do know I have not been able to view the home, and I don't believe the new worker has either.
All right. The services you provided so far, didn't she find Arbor Circle with her counseling and the recovery coach on her own?
Not during this reporting period. That may have been the case in the previous reporting period. However, the previous worker, Miss Jordan Morrison, was the one to re-refer Mrs. Ackland to Arbor Circle.
Okay. And there hasn't been a psych eval done, correct?
Mrs. Ackland was referred to psychological evaluations. However, she did not successfully complete them. She had missed one psychological evaluation and then did not completely finish the second scheduled appointment, and the provider is no longer willing to re-refer her for a psychological evaluation. The agency would want to see consistent participation in parenting times and participation through Arbor Circle prior to the agency finding a new provider who can complete a psychological evaluation with Mrs. Ackland.
Okay. With regard to her parenting time, you said all she spends is about 30 minutes interacting because she spends about 30 minutes eating. She's only offered an hour at each visit per week, correct?
That is correct.
So you're saying that she's only spending 30 minutes. You could expand that time, correct?
If the youth schedule allows that, that is something that the agency could pursue. I don't know what time the youth go to sleep, and due to school, parenting times are happening in the evenings from 5:45 to 6:45 at this point in time. So that's a conversation that we could have with the relative caregiver to see if we were able to expand them. However, due to Mrs. Ackland's inconsistent participation, that has not been pursued at this time.
Well, she's been mostly consistent with her parenting time. There's been events that have been beyond her control, such as transportation and weather, correct?
No, that would not be correct. Most of Mrs. Ackland's parenting times that have been missed were due to Mrs. Ackland not confirming timely for her parenting times. Transportation and weather has only been a barrier to about 2 of those parenting times, of
Okay.
which she has
But
the resources to attend.
You require her to call in advance or the kids don't go, correct?
Mrs. Ackland just has to text the agency that she is confirming for a parenting time prior to 3:30 p.m.
If she doesn't confirm prior to 3:30, then the kids aren't at the agency.
That is correct.
And then she misses a visit.
That is correct.
And you don't have visits at the caregiver who is her mother, correct?
That is correct, due to Mrs. Ackland's behaviors during parenting times that require police intervention.
Okay. Moving forward then, you said that she was informed of the tonsillitis surgery. Have there been any other medical events that require notice to her that she was not informed?
No, I do not believe so. Mrs.
Okay.
Ackland is informed.
Was there an event where a caregiver cut the children's hair without securing her permission?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And is anybody pursuing a medical treatment like such as circumcisions for the boys without consulting her?
No, not at this time. Mrs. Ackland would be made aware if that was something that was being pursued.
And you would need her consent, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Didn't Ms. Ackland finish her parenting class?
Yes, she did complete her parenting class.
And overall, her parenting time she's engaged with all the children and it's appropriate, correct?
Yes, other than the one instance on 3/11 where Mrs. Ackland was under the influence of alcohol, Mrs. Ackland does do well during her parenting times.
Okay. Children are very bonded with her, correct?
It appears that they are well bonded to Mrs. Ackland, yes.
Okay. And with regard to communication now, has she had trouble with her cell service or telephone?
Initially, at the beginning of the reporting period, she was. However, the agency was able to request a new phone for Mrs. Ackland, which eliminated the barrier of her being unable to communicate with the agency.
Okay. Now, you're recommending termination, but the children are only going to care for about a year, correct?
That is correct.
And they are placed with a relative, correct?
That is correct.
And did you discuss with Ms. Kendrick guardianship or other care just to give Ms. Ackland more time?
I do not recall having that conversation with Mrs. Ackland, or I'm sorry, with the relative caregiver. I'm unsure if the previous worker had that conversation with her. But that could be a conversation that could occur.
Okay, so the main things that she needs are, she needs domestic violence, which she's getting with Ms. Harmon. She's got good parenting skills. Substance use, she's had some clean screens, you just want to clean going forward. And then you're gonna help her find housing.
Yes, that would be correct.
And those are the main barriers, correct?
Yes, those are the main barriers.
All right. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Cairns, you indicate that Mr. Ackland is out of state, of course, and he's working some odd hours. It looks like, I'm looking at his pay stub that he sent over to your agency, and it looks like he works 12 hours or more per day and begins his work day at 5 a.m. Is that an accurate statement?
To my understanding, his hours do fluctuate quite a bit. However, he did indicate to me that he does work very long hours.
And I'm looking at the pay stub, and it looks like consistently he starts at 5 a.m. According to these pay stubs. Am I looking at those correctly?
Yeah, I believe it changes from week to week. So that was just based on the conversation I had with him. He had indicated to me that it tends to be inconsistent. However, the pay stubs do reflect some consistency in his schedule.
Okay, and so what time are his parenting time virtual visits set up with his children? Do you know that?
I do not have the exact time. However, the youth are in school, so the parenting times would be occurring in the afternoon. I would suspect probably a similar parenting time as to what Mrs. Ackland is participating in, so around 5:45 or 6 o'clock.
Okay. Is that the reason that Mr. Ackland gives you for not attending so many parenting times? Is that his work schedule is preventing his ability to attend those parenting times?
I have not received any information from Mr. Ackland as to why he's not participating. Ms. Lee has since taken over the case and has had additional conversation with Mr. Ackland via virtual home visit, as well as text and potentially phone call communication. So that is information that Ms. Lee may be aware of, but I have not been informed.
Okay, you did say that you're limited in the number of services that you can provide because of his domicile being in Kentucky. What services are you able to provide?
Mr. Ackland has been provided a parenting class through MSU Extension. Mr. Ackland has also been provided funding in order to have visits with, or a visit at least with, the youth in person in Michigan. The agency has outlined for Mr. Ackland what the agency would like to see in order to rectify the barriers that brought the youth into care, and gave him examples such as counseling, domestic violence services. Those would be the two primary ones in addition to the parenting class. But due to him living out of state, Mr. Ackland must pursue that independently.
Okay, and is that domestic violence, and that's related to domestic violence between he and mom prior to their split up?
Correct.
Okay. And to be clear, at one time, mother was living in Kentucky with Mr. Ackland. Is that true?
Yes, I believe that's true.
And then she moved back here with the children sometime prior to the inception of this case?
Correct.
Okay. All right, you answered the question about the ALP. I was wondering about that myself. For the oldest ZA, an ALP is needed because they weren't married at the time that child was born. Is that true?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay. Now the recommendation today is another permanency planning hearing. You indicated that you were looking at termination, asking the prosecutor to start a termination proceeding, or the court to authorize the prosecutor to move ahead with termination. But being that the children are with a relative, and you have not had that discussion with the relative placement, why would you be asking for a termination prior to even having that discussion?
The termination of parental rights, given the history that Mrs. Acklin has with the relative caregiver as well as other family members, would allow more finalization in a sense of permanency and allow the relative caregiver to have full care and custody of the children without Mrs. or Mr. Acklin having any parental rights to the youth. And again, that would be due to the extensive discord between Mrs. Acklin and her family members.
Okay, but again, you testified that Miss Acklin at least has, the children appear to be bonded to mother, true?
True.
And so that to sever that bond by terminating the parental rights, that's in the best interest of the children.
At this time, Mr. Acklin has not been participating in virtual parenting times for many months at this point. So the bond that he already has with the youth are very limited. Upon reading previous reports.
I'm referring to mother right now because mother's assessing the children. Mother, you indicated that mother has a substantial bond with the children. Would that be accurate?
I don't know if I would quantify as extensive. She does have a bond with the youth. She appears excited to see the youth. The youth appear excited to see her. However, her participation has been inconsistent throughout the entirety of the case.
Okay. And but you can measure that and you can say that the children seem to be excited when she does do parenting times with the children. And so that if that bond or that connection they have is severed, would you believe that would be in the children's best interest?
Yes, I would believe it's in their best interest to provide them that sense of permanency. And if the relative caregiver and Mrs. Acklin were able to reestablish their relationship, it would be left up to the relative caregiver's discretion to allow Mrs. Acklin into their life. They all live very close. The relative caregiver continues to support Mrs. Acklin despite Mrs. Acklin's behavior. So the continuity of the relationship would still be there.
But again, adoption or guardianship have not been discussed with the relative caregiver at this point?
I do not believe so.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you for your testimony. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Newhouse, any follow-up?
No, thank you.
Ms. Coletti, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Newhouse, any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Coletti, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Adams, any witnesses?
No witnesses or evidence. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Newhouse, statement?
Yes, I met with the children, this time virtually. I had an appointment to meet at their house, but I fell and broke my arm that day. And the kids were fascinated. They all wanted to see my arm. So I had something to show them. But I'm just totally amazed at the grandmother's ability to organize these children. They were all sitting there eating dinner, polite. Of course, I give Mrs. Acklin credit for that too. She's helped raise these children, but they're doing very well in the home. I do support moving towards termination, but I would understand the court's reluctance. It's been a year and we do have the children with a relative, but I would assert that these children have special needs, and there's 5 of them, which complicates things too. And Mr. Acklin's made little to no progress, and he's still not stepped up and helped us make sure that he's legal father for the oldest. And Mrs. Acklin has done very little. She's attended less than half the visits, and visits are so important. And yes, visits were at the grandmother's home, which made it very convenient for her, which gave her extra time and all of that. And they were ended based on Ms. Acklin's behavior and alleged usage. And she's just getting started with the Arbor Circle program, which is a wonderful program. So she's just getting started on domestic violence, mental health, substances, and all of that. I would want her to attend all of her random tests so that we're able to really look at what her needs are. And so housing, it sounds like she's lost that now. She had housing. The job she has, I don't know that we have any good read on how much she's making. There's the medical reports are very concerning because it's involving her in I don't know what type of relationship, but something that's violent. That gives me a lot of pause to move past anything but supervised visitation at this time. So there's a lot that she needs to do. And I would hope that if the court does set this for another permanency planning hearing, that she's committed to the Arbor Circle program and shows us some consistency here, because these children need permanency. And I do support moving towards termination, but like I said, I would understand the court's reluctance to do this since they are with a relative at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would respectfully request that you set this hearing for another permanency planning hearing. Ms. Ackland's had some difficulties and things that were beyond her control. I would just ask that, because it's been a year since the children have been in care and they are with a relative, that we not change the goal to termination and allow her another 3 months. She just started Arbor Circle, which I agree with Ms. Newhouse. This is a great program. I think it's really helping her. She's invested in it and has good relationship with her workers. They are here today supporting her. So Your Honor, I do believe, because of the bond of these children and because it's it's been a year, that we give her an additional 3 months and then review and see where we are at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Adams.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would echo Ms. Colletti. I think it's premature to move toward termination at this point. Frankly, Mom has made some progress, so we're only a year in. Housing is certainly an issue, but it's an issue for a lot of people now. The fact that the children are placed with a relative caregiver, that certainly would support giving this mother more time. I know that Mr. Ackland hasn't stepped up. Him living out of state is a big barrier for him. He's also having housing issues, working 12 hours plus a day, trying just to put money together just to survive on his own. So, but I think that given the circumstances of these two parents, that more time is certainly warranted in this case. So I'd ask the court set the next event for a permanency planning hearing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute in terms of visiting the children, that returning these children today to either parent would cause a substantial risk of harm to their life, physical health, or mental well-being for the reasons that have been placed on the record today in testimony and evidence, that the children should not be returned to a parent today, that the agency should not terminate or should not initiate proceedings to terminate parental rights to the children at this time, because first of all, these children are with a relative, and the option of guardianship versus adoption has not been explored with that relative. And we have just passed or just hit the 1 year mark. Having said that, though, I will also say everybody talks about it just being 1 year for these children. That is a very, very long time. And I just want to make it clear that I will be I'm not referring this or authorizing this for termination yet, but our next hearing, that is definitely something the court will be looking at if I have not seen substantial progress. That reasonable efforts have been made to preserve, reunify the family, to make it possible for the children to safely return to a parent's home, that reasonable efforts for reunification be continued, that in accordance with the statute, progress towards alleviating or mitigating the conditions that cause these children to be placed or remain in temporary foster care has not been made by either parent, that the children's continued placement is necessary and appropriate as meeting each of their individual needs. I too am very impressed by Ms. Kendrick and her abilities in terms of keeping these children safe, managing all their schedules, getting them to all the things that they need to get to. So I just want to add my thanks. that the needs of each of these children can be met in a foster family home, that reasonable efforts have been made to finalize the court-approved permanency plan of return to a parent, that permanency planning goal remains appropriate, that the department foster care, foster home, or institutional placement has followed the reasonable and prudent parenting standard, and that each of these children have had the opportunity to engage in age or developmentally appropriate activities. It sounds like they're very busy. The siblings are in joint placement. I will note that the court ordered at the last hearing that the father, Mr. Ackland, be present at this hearing, and the court notes that he is not. So I'll continue that order that he appear at the next hearing. It is ordered that the children continue in the protective and temporary custody of the court, continue their placement with the Department for Care and Supervision, that the adjudicated respondents, who are both parents, comply with and benefit from the case service plan, that the department has discretion regarding Ms. Ackland's parenting time as to whether it's unsupervised or supervised by its designee, that the parenting time of Mr. Ackland also is at the discretion of the department. And the court does note that the court did order a CASA be appointed at the last hearing. I'm not sure where the ball dropped, but we'll make sure that the CASA is appointed. Continue the attorneys in this matter. And Ms. Gibson, do we have a review hearing date for about 90 days out?
Yes, Your Honor. July 22, from 9:30 to 11. This is a permanency planning hearing, correct?
Yes, as well as a review.
Okay.
Any conflicts with that date or time?
I have a hearing in Montcalm at 9 o'clock.
Okay, that's not going to work for you then. We'll
No
find another
problem.
date.
Yep. How is Wednesday, July 23 from 9 to 10:30?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay with me. The 23rd, 9 to 10:30.
Yes.
Does that work for everyone else?
That's for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I have an appointment, eye doctor appointment. I can see if I can move it.
Okay.
Mr. Adams, we have a different time available that day. Would later be better?
Yeah, the only thing I have other than that is a 1:30 on that date.
If we did 10:30 to noon, would that be better for you?
That'd be great.
Does that work for everybody else?
Yeah, that works for me too.
Okay. 10:30 to noon it is on July 23rd.
And that'll be by Zoom again?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything further?
No, thank you.
Nothing,
Okay.
thank you, Your Honor.